Imagine standing in the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., ready to deliver a speech in front of thousands upon thousands of people. A speech that will change the trajectory of this country. A speech that will influence the lives of people and generations to come. A speech not only for African Americans, but to all Americans. How would you feel? And what would you do? You need to attempt the impossible in order to achieve the impossible. And this was achieved by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an American Baptist minister and activist and one of the most prominent leaders in the civil rights movement. He became a familiar name all because he had a dream and he persevered to let it come true. There is a powerful electricity that runs through all of King's sermons. You can feel emotions and intent in all of his words. His speeches and his influence perfectly touch the souls of those hearing them. You know him by his name. You know what he stands for. But what can you do with it? Well, in today's video, we'll take a look at the inspiring story of Martin Luther King Jr. and how his movement for change has shaped the world in many ways, more than you can imagine, and how you can live out his words in your own life and untapping your potential. Welcome to Untapping Your Potential, where we will share with you motivational stories, motivational figures, comeback stories, and public speaking tips that will keep you growing and inspire you to take action. When you think of historic moments during the civil rights struggle, you usually identify it with Martin Luther King Jr., prime mover of the Montgomery bus boycott, keynote speaker at the March on Washington, and the youngest Nobel Peace Prize laureate. King was born in Atlanta on January 15, 1929, one of the three children of Martin Luther King Sr., pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church. He was an initial skeptic to religion. He wasn't planning to enter the ministry, but then he met Dr. Benjamin Mays, a scholar whose manner and bearing convinced him that a religious career could be intellectually satisfying as well. He eventually became a Baptist minister, a civil rights activist, and a seismic impact on race relations in the United States. He made his first mark on the civil rights movement by mobilizing the black community during a 382-day boycott of the city's bus lines. King established himself as a rising star in the civil rights movement, especially after Rosa Parks was arrested in Alabama on December 1955 for refusing to give up her seat to a white passenger. The NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, chose King to lead the Montgomery bus boycotts. With civil rights demonstrations emerging all over the country, the protests ultimately led to the U.S. Supreme Court decision which outlawed segregation in public buses. King overcame arrests and other violent harassments, including the bombing of his own home. Ultimately, the U.S. Supreme Court declared the bus segregation unconstitutional. This bombing incident became a pivotal point for his followers. That night, on September 30th, 1956, when his house was bombed, Martin Luther King was at church, while Mary Lucy Williams and Mrs. King were in the living room, and baby Yolanda King was in the master bedroom sleeping. And all of a sudden, Mrs. King hears a noise out front, so they ran down the hallway. A blast went off seconds later. King rushed immediately back home and found out that his family wasn't harmed at all. But in the meantime, 300 to 500 angry black people gathered around and had guns, knives, and sticks, shovels, and pitchforks. Amid the angry crowd that could have exploded in a minute, this young preacher was a very special human being because it didn't take him many words to calm those people down. All he did was raise his hand and told his people to go home. He who lives by the sword will die by the sword. God will take care of them. He told his people, you had to do two things in order to be free. One, you have to forgive everybody for everything they've ever done to you. And two, you have to overcome the love of wealth and the fear of death. This resonated into the hearts of the people. Now, Martin Luther King was heavily influenced by Mahatma Gandhi, in which he advocated civil disobedience and nonviolent resistance to segregation in the South. However, the peaceful protests he led throughout the South were often met with violence. But King and his followers persisted, and the movement gained momentum. A national hero and a civil rights figure of growing importance, King summoned together a number of black leaders in 1957 and laid the groundwork for the organization now known as Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC. King was elected as president, and he soon began helping other communities organize their own protests against discrimination. A few years passed, and King became a principal speaker at the historic March on Washington, where he delivered one of the most passionate addresses of his career. The I Have a Dream speech was delivered on August 28, 1963, on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. He said, I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Time magazine designated him as the Person of the Year for 1963. A few months later, he was named recipient of the 1964 Nobel Peace Prize. He wanted to discourage violence, and he wanted to focus national attention on the plight of the poor, an organization for workers in the city. Many folks were bargaining for basic union representation and long overdue raises. But he never got back to his poverty plans. Death came for King on April 4th, 1968, on the balcony of the Black-owned Lorraine Hotel just off Beale Street in Memphis. While standing outside with Jesse Jackson and Ralph Abernathy, King was shot in the neck by a rifle bullet. His death caused a wave of violence in major cities across the country. However, even today, King's legacy has lived on. In 1969, his widow, Coretta Scott King, organized the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change. Today, it stands next to his beloved Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. His birthday, January 15th, is a national holiday, celebrated each year with educational programs, artistic displays, and concerts throughout the United States. The Lorraine Hotel where he was shot at is now the National Civil Rights Museum. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. The call to love that Dr. King lays out in Forgive and Love echoes throughout his speeches and his actions. Only love is capable of transforming hate. Therefore, to change the world, love has to be extended to everyone, even to your enemies. And you can see how his influence has changed the world. It's effective. Love is a practice he realized, and here's how you could apply what he has said in your own life. 1. Looking at oneself. We must face the fact that an individual might dislike us because of something that we've done deep down in the past. That is why I say begin with yourself. 2. Seeing the good in all. As you seek to hate them, find the center of goodness and place your attention there, and you will take a new attitude. 3. Serve others. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? 4. Have a dream and persevere. King had the perseverance to keep going through tough times, yet he didn't lose sight of his goal of a non-racial society. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. And 5, stand up for your dream. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Thanks for watching this video. How would you like to hear more motivational stories on a consistent basis? Do me a favor, support the channel by sharing, commenting below, and please make sure to like and hit that subscribe button to get the latest updates. Soon, you will be on your way to feeling inspired.